Hello, hi there, holder. Hello, hi there, everybody. Hello, welcome. We're a little early. We're starting at 5. We had a couple of dead minutes. I apologize for that. I sent the message out, so we'll see who comes and who doesn't come. Welcome, everybody. I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome to the Friday live stream where I sit and talk for you guys for an hour. It's been kind of my teaching schedule is kind of weird this semester. It's Monday, Tuesday, so I get really exhausted at the beginning of the week, and then my wife really makes me take Wednesdays off. I have been recording. I wrote a couple things. I wrote something. I kind of wrote something. I'm trying to get something on Fukuyama. I want to hit something on Fukuyama soon. Something small on Fukuyama. I need to address Fukuyama. Just a little bit, one or two things on Fukuyama that I might send to somebody. And I need to go people say to me, what I kind of prepared. I was busy this week kind of tweaking my Midwest, my Aristotle paper that I'm giving at the Midwest conference in the beginning of April at Chicago. It's mostly done. I just have to add some notes and things like this. I kind of made the conference paper. It's ready. I can ship it to the readers soon when they ask for it. I really am behind. The Benesoit piece I need to go make the notes on. I just have to go sit down and put the notes in it. And this has been going on for 2 months. I'm bad me. I should be doing this. But I don't feel there's a rush on that one. But I really should get it out. And the next thing I should kind of start doing, I should also look at my De La Mora thing. I just needed to verify my quotes because I made some quotes, I did some editing, and I did things. Now I have to make sure I quoted where I cited it correctly from. So I'm going to go check that out. And I'm kind of, part of me does not want to send it to the European Conservative again. I promised I might send them again, but I'm going to send a polite letter saying, listen, I'd like to do it with you, but my experience of this was that it wasn't a good experience. That the feedback I got was not useful to doing writing. There wasn't real good guidance about what was wanted. So I might send something else there. I might just write another piece on De La Mora and just send it to them saying, here, this is, and why. Basically, what is about De La Mora and why is he still relevant? I might make that piece. Why people should look at De La Mora's piece, egalitarian. Why is egalitarian envy? Using this and the article, write a short thing. Write short little 2,000-word essay on this. I just need to know. I have to go check out what is the essay, why it's still relevant. Why that I'm going to send that today because I think mere book review is kind of a pointless thing. So I might go do that. That is what I have to do for myself, my work, my writing, and that stuff. I am needing to tackle the Prince, Aristotle's Prince. Oh, that's book 10, book 5 of the Politics, particularly chapters 10 and 11. I have to deal with that. That has to be done. I'm going to sit down. I have some notes. I have things I need. I think this is the summer I'm going to get that. I think I'm going to get book 5 and book 6 done this summer. That's my goal. News, I got 2 big invitations to do. I was asked by an editor to write about Trump for the 3rd volume in the Trump and Political Philosophy series. But they want me to write about Schmidt and Trump. And to be honest with you, I don't think I think to view Trump through the lens of Carl Schmitt is a misunderstanding. It's almost because I think ultimately Schmidt is an ally of administrative state, and argues that the nature of the state and the administrative state is the natural consequence. And therefore, it's not going to be something that I would argue that, this is not, I don't think, I think, as I said, I think, I even sent the letter, I think I'm going to think about it this weekend. This weekend is my deadline, my trigger pull. I'm going to do it or not. I'll have to get it done this summer. By the end of the summer, um, I am, I'm on the edge. I'm on the edge of saying one way or the other. It's an honor to be asked, but I kind of balked to them about Schmidt. I said, listen, it's, someone like Trump. Trump is more Vincent Peale and, Norman Vincent Peale, the concept of positive thinking and Dale Carnegie's how to win friends, influence people, his own art of the deal, which is kind of a kind of a rethinking of that. He is more kind of, and then therefore tied. Also, I would even say that he's tied to the problem of this, and that for Trump, the big problem is the problem of charisma. That the whole question of charismatic leadership and then how charismatic leadership is usually in the eye of the beholder, and the variations of charismatic leadership. So when I said that, they kind of said, "Well, we still want you to do something about Schmidt," and I go, "Really?" Because they want me to say, "Why don't you say what you don't think of Schmidt?" So since I think they really want someone to write on, they're going to have like 3 or 4 people talking about Schmidt and this. I think they asked me because I have published several things and reviewed several things, book reviews on Schmidt and things on Schmidt, and I did the series on Schmidt. And they think, well, you're gonna be a Schmidt mania guy. There's Schmidt everywhere, and therefore, talk about Schmidt in. This is kind of an abuse of political theory, in that sense. No. Schmidt has some useful constructions, but I don't see Schmidt everywhere. And I don't even have a crisis. I mean, I agree with Paul Gottfried's ending critique of the problem of Schmidt is that Schmidt really, Schmidt is not as radical as people think he is. He is basically a kind of a Hobbesian. He takes the Hobbesian principle. He takes something from Hobbes and goes on it, but then at the same time, he takes something from the critique of the Rousseauians and the irrational aspect of things and goes with it also. So therefore, there is this just twofold dimension in Schmidt that is interesting and useful to think about. But is Schmidt the answer to everything? No. Is his friend-enemy distinction? Yeah. See, the problem about the enemy is that, yes, the enemy is important, but the friend is as much important. And you can argue that what sometimes... No, but I think, Schmidt is a corrective to a liberalism that overemphasized friendship. Utility friendships, okay? In other words, the idea of liberalism is the idea that the people will come to agreement and harmony through cooperation of shared interest. This is the Hobbesian framework. So in many ways, he thinks that, the positive dimension, friendship, has been paid attention to, and that the negative aspect has not paid attention to, hence why he pays attention to the enemy. And the fact that the liberalism wants to forget about the enemy, right? And he's right about that. That is true. But still, there is a problem in Schmidt is that the positive critique. Okay, what is the positive? And that to focus on the enemy is not to is also to mislead as well. So therefore, so I don't really think to talk about. I think to talk about Schmidt in the context of Trump is to misunderstand what Trump is doing. I'm firmly of the belief what Trump is doing is a restorative act in that sense, a correction a kind of a attempt to normalize from the revolution in that sense, and therefore it is a restorational construction, not really a and this is why people like Wexler, who's Wexler is not on YouTube and Twitter. He's not dumb, but he is blinded by his liberalism. And I feel sorry for his health conditions and things like that. And he's not a dumb person, but his liberalism is naive. He pretends to be not naive, but it is. He criticizes liberals in certain ways, but he's naive in the sense that he believes that what he thinks democracy is not really democracy. Democracy, the real nature of liberalism and democratic structures are much messier. And he has a purist intent. He doesn't really understand. I mean, I always make my point is I find Rousseau more realistic than him. Rousseau is willing to accept realities of structures and choices, where he's always moralizing about those choices in a certain way. Wexler. And his idea of democratic institutions are collapsing. Democratic institutions are collapsing because democratic elites have betrayed them. Okay, they've lied to everyone. They've used them to do certain things. So I mentioned Wexler because it's kind of like the problem that once you talk about Schmidt, oh my God, Schmidt. The once you try to use Schmidt to talk about something like Trump, then what you've done is it's the perfect trap, because the enemies of Trump, the anti-liberalism, this is the mistake I think in a little bit of what Michael Anton did, and this is why he was so easy to, in certain voices of the left, he is so easy to, I even left among even like, neocons and things like that. Oh my God, he mentioned the Nazi. Oh my God. I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, Bannon's I've never understood why people like Evola. It's not that I'm not, I can respect Schmidt more than I can respect Evola. Okay. I can respect Heidegger. I respect Schmidt. But when I look at someone like Evola, and also my problem is with and this is also my problem with Dugin. I don't really. Dugin is a mystic more than a philosopher, and I've never been I really look at him and I see kind of a kind of blurring of certain things. He's a Russian thinker. He's clearly a Russian thinker, but informed by a certain tradition of Russian thought. That both Dostoevsky and even Gogol perfectly explain in their writings. There is this kind of Pan-Slavism there. So, I mean, and there's an attempt to bring in the postmodern Heideggerian philosophical construction to help ensure it's a critique against liberalism. But yeah, I mean, someone says maybe I need to go look at it. I can never, like I said, I always say this. I've really have a hard, I read his book on the fourth political thought. I just, no, it made me like Vogelin again. The more I attempted to read Dugin's fourth political theory, the more I hated it and couldn't take it serious. I mean, I just rejected it, and came to like Vogelin. Compared to Vogelin's New Science of Politics, which it is to me a linguistic mess, structural linguistic mess, is a masterpiece of clarity in contrast in logic compared to the fourth political theory. His book on Heidegger and other book on that is okay. His original books are on geopolitics, and they're kind of, mecanderistic this mechanistic kind of the great island versus the world island versus the peripheral, and attempting to frame it as Eurasian constructions. Just not. It's okay. Schmidt in Land and Sea does it better. Okay, Schmidt in Land and Sea does it far better. So I'm not. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole in that sense. I've been recommended by a couple of people by what's his name? What's his name? My brain is Matthew Goodwin. And the interview with Matthew Goodwin talked about Luke Conway's book, Liberal Bullies. I just got this recently. I ordered a copy, and it's going to be. I know about this. The way liberals bully people is a very good thing. I mentioned that. The other thing is I've been rereading some geopolitics. This is George Friedman's 2022 book about the calm before the storm. Again, Friedman's interesting. Sometimes he's a little weird and things like this. The other thing, I'm waiting for some things. I'm waiting for the new Pierre Menot book to come out in May, the new translation of his Pascal into English, his book on Pascal into English. And then I am looking at, I've been waiting to get a copy of the Montaigne. I think I have his Montaigne already, but my order for Montaigne is keep getting canceled. I maybe order the paperback because there's an expansion on that by Notre Dame Press. Well, we'll see. I'm still waiting for St. Augustine Press to release. My God, it's been now 3 years to release the Ancient City, the new translation of the Ancient City that they've been promising. They have a back order on it. And it's like, oh my God, 2 years, 3 years now in back order. St. Augustine, what's going on? Is the author giving you a hard time not delivering something? It's like, what? Come on, this is a very important translation. A new translation is needed because, of course, the 19th century translation was very airy, had an Aryan dimension. The one done by the current one that is published by John Hopkins Press is technically good, but also technically deceptive a little bit. Of course, I can read the French, so I have the French. I do check the French out, but most of the publicly available translations are versions of the 19th century one, which is kind of very deceptive on racial aspects, and the introduction of Aryan concepts and racial constructs that are kind of something. I mean, this is something that. Coolidge sought to avoid because he opposed the Germanic theme, that the Tacitus Germanic argument that Germanic culture and Germanic structures build modern France. Because of the idea that the current the identity and structure of France is shaped by the Frankish kings, the German kings, so it's Germanic. And he is, Coolidge's 5-volume, I think it's 5-volume history of the French monarchy seems to want to argue against that in a sense. So I think that is something I've been really, really hoping somebody at St. Augustine's get off their ass and get that done. But then again, I know that they won't talk to me because I tried getting D'Alvarez to have published his translation with them, and they were willing to do it. And D'Alvarez, at the last minute, did the typical D'Alvarez thing and shook it out. But we're making progress on the Machiavelli discourses. We've been making recordings. I'm hoping to get book 1 done soon. Recordings for book 1 and all the videos done by at least the second week by mid-April, and then go to start. Then you'll see everything done. We recorded way before that, the recordings for 2. I like to get into book 2, which book 2 has only 33 chapters, and therefore that will make the progress on that. Just noticeable things. We're going to talk about me. I will talk about in the note below and the note for the video. If you go look at the card below, I make a reference to things I'm talking to. I want to talk about my 2 Miskatonian pieces on Huntington. Should be pieces, not piece. So oops a daisy. Which I published. It came out the first one came out last Monday, and this one just come out this past Monday, the second part, Monday, Tuesday. So the title is Visions of Chaos, Crafting Stability in the Rest of the Age. The first one dealt with the purely looking at Huntington's conception of political order, and the second one dealt with the contrasting Huntington to Aristotle's regime, on stability. How do you do things? And the question of this. And I think I think it's a very interesting piece of doing this. Is my attempt to kind of rethink and talk about the usefulness of the usefulness of Huntington to our current time and place. I also mentioned the Dan Mahoney's new recent piece on the American mind, which was Hitler all the way down, where he kind of goes after all this, Trump's Hitler and all this Hitler kind of throwing around Hitler this, Hitler that, and how this is problematic and how this is dangerous. Dan does a good job on this. He really does he kind of uses he kind of shows the current left and how they throw around Hitler around so much has actually harmed real understandings and the real dangers of Hitler, what Nazism is and what the element of this is. And that I think he's good. His piece is a very good challenge to all sides, but that's not used terms. That this is a very thing. Now, everyone knows that the Ukraine thing is going out because of what happened last Friday. When we were doing our thing, that's when the issue after they had the Oval Office meeting, where Zelensky's just fucked everything up. I actually believe Zelensky really should not have. Zelensky's ego is too big. He needs not to be there. He cannot be the agent of mediation. He's too arrogant in the sense that why the fuck did he not rely on a translator? He thinks he's so arrogant. He thinks he can do English, and his English, he clearly was not able to engage in the discussion and understand. He misunderstood a lot of. Clearly, it was clear he was misunderstanding. Well, buy a suit is one thing, but show some respect. But even that, no. I think it's the show. The not okay. The comments say buy a suit. Well, okay, but that's symbolic of the problem. It's not. It's the suit is not the problem. It's the ego is the problem. That he thinks I'm going to be the action hero. I'm doing some. He's been. And he thinks he can get away with kind of bullying of this. It's symbolic of the ego that he does. I'm capable of doing. I'm capable of just arguing in English. This no, he wasn't. He didn't. I mean, the Mr. Reagan AI clip making fun of this is hilarious. We're not. I'm not. We're not playing cards. No. We're not. There's no checkers here. We're not in a. That the AI funny thing that how they made fun of the Zelensky cokehead and things like that. And I steal the money. I want to steal money. See, Mr. Reagan's video is hilarious. Not because I think it's, I don't want to characterize these perceptions of them that's completely valid. But there is a problem with Zelensky in that sense. I really think that the Americans really wanted to do the deal. Why? Not because the deal's that great. The deal's not necessarily that great, but it's a way to get peace and a way to get security backdoored. Okay, it is not a formal guarantee of security, but once American businesses are there, there's going to be a less likely that Moscow, the second Moscow does try to betray. And actually, this is another thing that people don't realize. People always want to list all the ways Putin broke. I'm not a Putin fan. Putin is a bad guy. Putin is a bad actor. Let's be honest about this. Putin is no hero. Putin is not the savior of democracy. It was right for Ukraine to defend themselves. It was right to liberate them from Russian control. But the problem with any such liberation out and fight and things, there's a certain time where what do you want to get? If you want to preserve Ukraine, maybe a little a little bit of okay, we preserve Ukraine. We'll admit, because they're not willing to admit the problem is Zelensky is not willing to be. He won't negotiate because any negotiation that gives any signs of victory to Russia is unacceptable. It's rewarding aggressors. Well, everyone wants to pitch that what's happened here today. In fact, my friend Steve Howard has a very good a Substack piece in his political question Substack on this idea of Munich 1938 versus Munich 2025, not 1938 to 2025. That these are two different worlds, and that no matter even how bad Putin is, he is no Hitler. Oh my God, he murders Russians, murder and rape. Well, tell me when that they haven't done that. Okay, this is just Russian behavior. I'm not going to deny reality of how Russians fight their wars. They murder children, they kidnap people, they rape, they loot, they do this. This is not a new Putin strategy. This is the way Russians fight. This is how a non-modern conscript peasant army fights, particularly one of a population so shaped. Okay, so let's not say, oh, this is a uniquely Putin-esque thing. And the Ukrainians may be only they want to be better, but they're, some of the behavior. In fact, this is the problem. So, you can say, well, that was Trump should never have behaved that way. No, Trump behaved perfectly. It was, this was supposed to be a signing ceremony. People, Zelensky went in there trying to screw it. So you fuck around and find out. Okay, this is the problem about this. He went there with a clear. We know this. General Kellogg hints at this, and the new Secretary of Commerce, and there's been lots of reporting of how Zelensky. This is reported by Rubio and Mark. National Security Advisor Waltz have complained that Zelensky says one thing and then says another later. And Zelensky has a very bad record of this. Look at how he behaved. I've experienced Zelensky's bad behavior living in Poland. Look how he betrayed the PIS government that helped him, that stood up and was an ally to him. And then when the Germans and the EU people who wanted to get rid of this government said, well, you need to ask for, pushed him, encouraged him to go ask for open access of the farm markets, knowing that if the PIS government agreed to that, it would be the death of the PIS government. And the PIS could not. Why? Because giving the Ukrainian open access to the EU agricultural market would destroy farming in Eastern Europe. and destroy farming because you can't compete. In other words, the Polish land, the agricultural base, and it's mostly state-owned still in Ukraine. It's like this structure, but it's still better quality land that it doesn't need the same nutrients and development and care and shifting. You can farm in that same piece of land. The ground there is so good from the point of view of agrarian structures that it was simply all of Eastern Europe and all of inside the European Union, like let's name them: Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia. Czech is not that heavily agricultural, but Poland and Lithuania. Okay, these agricultural areas will just simply, and actually, it will even destroy agricultural entities within the EU, the Western European states too, in France, and Germany, what's left of agriculture there. And now, of course, the Europeans want to do this themselves. The EU and the Green New Deal wants to, the green policies, the net zero, and their agenda to kill farming for the name. They want farming to go to. The Greens and those who adapt in the Green Deals want the farming to go to places like Ukraine or outside of the EU, so that they can basically be ecology, reduce our dependence on the emissions of greenhouse gases and blah, 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 blah. So no government who, particularly PIS, who depends on the agriculture sector, could do that. And what happened was, because that's why Duda's comment was about, oh my God, you try to help a drowning man, they will take you down with them, which everyone didn't understand. But this is true. Zelensky, Ukraine and Zelensky are a drowning person, and try to help them, and they flash and slash at you. And this is the danger. And what happened with them is that the PIS government wouldn't, tried to play a mod. It didn't want to condemn Ukraine. It refused it, as refused also, the problem with the Ukrainian truckers and the Ukrainian companies operating in the EU, not having to comply with EU law, therefore harming Polish interests, therefore kind of not complaining about this, allowed for the rise of Confederacja. Okay. This is why Confederacja is the rising party. And therefore now with PO trying to arrest everyone, and PIS, destroy PIS. I'm warning anyone who's a pro PO, pro KO, pro coalition people, be careful. You are just by you. Oh yeah, we get to punish Kaczynski. Yeah, great. You're just going to bring in power. You're going to tamper with elections. You're going to do these things like this. Okay. So when Confederacja gets in power eventually, and they start arresting you guys and putting you guys in camps, you have no complaints. You've made that world. And actually, there's a very good Hudson Institute research paper that is kind of being suppressed, because the neocons at Huntington wanted to, no, we don't want to piss off Ann Applebaum and Radek, so we can't let this, because it was a very critical thing of Poland, arguing that the current government is unleashing a cycle of vengeance that will only undermine Europe. Okay, so no, that this is going to be a problem, and Zelensky is a problem. Zelensky betrayed them. So therefore, this is also his habit of backstabbing the very people who've helped him in the name of, maybe some other, just more richer, more Germans will do something for us, or these Europeans will do something else. But the Germans talked a good game. They promised a lot of things, but didn't deliver. Biden promised a lot of things, but slow walked everything. And the Poles were the biggest ally, and he betrayed them, and he stabbed them, and helped help the opposition. In fact, he came here running to help the opposition, the current coalition government candidate. The mayor of Warsaw is a green guy who is kind of a loser. He's pushing the Green Deal and crap idea. He's a guy who will believe anything that the pollsters tells him to believe. He's a whore. He's an idiot, and he's a child. His mother was a secret policeman. Okay, he's part of that clique. He's part of the old communist, the children of the communist secret, the elites and secret police. So, and he's championed him. So you tell me, no, we're good. So, no. This is, so I understand what the Trump team is dealing with Zelensky. He's a two-faced liar. He will say something to you there, and then he will then think he'll get you to say I think he'll say he's agreeing with you to kind of convince you that he's agreeing with it. And then behind your back he tries to fuck you over in the public, and that thing and virtue signals saying, oh no, I'm not going to do this, but I want victory over blah 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 blah. So no, I think it was it was premeditated. It was premeditated by Zelensky to try to embarrass Trump, to force to kind of talk, but that didn't work well. And the pauses, no, I'm sorry, the pauses are necessary. Do I believe we should totally cut off aid and help Putin get victory? No, but Ukrainians got to wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up. You've been under the delusion that we're going to help you forever. No. There's a kind of point where, sorry, no more help. And even suspending intelligence. Right? Oh, then the Europeans are gonna now punish America, not cooperate. Really? Trust me. If I was Chelsea, the Germans intelligence service is spying on American industry. So in other words, the NSA and the CIA cannot be used to spy on corporate interests. It can spy for the purposes of national security, but it can't spy on corporate interests and give it to American businesses. German state security entities do that regularly. So doesn't the French. So we know that there's French and German and other countries' intelligence agencies, European countries' intelligence agencies operating in the United States for the purposes of spying commercially. The FBI should round these people up, round them up. Saying, you want to play the game? You're going to play our spies versus your spies? Okay. We're not going to arrest. We're not going to sue them for national security. No. Corporate espionage. Get them in the engagement of corporate espionage. You get the Chinese, get a couple of Europeans, get a couple of Germans. Not even let it get public. Just do it. Grab a couple of them, have them disappear, and the Germans say, "What happened to them?" Oh. I think this is the way you grab them by the balls, the hearts and minds of the Europeans. Do not have the guts to do anything that they've done. This is really all this big talk about fighting Russia. Really? The Germans haven't. They promised things. 2022, they promised to spend anything. Have they spent anything? Have they even hit their 2% yet? No. They won't either. So therefore, let's not have any foolishness about this. This is silly. I don't want you this idea and this belief that Trump and people who support Trump are pro-Putin because they want a ceasefire or they want a war. A ceasefire for a ceasefire's sake, no, but a ceasefire to end hostilities, and then consequences for breaking it. I think that is clear. And by security guarantees, I mean, okay, no, we're not gonna send our armies to you, but we will give you long-range weapons. I will, in other words, we will sell them long-range weapons. And if you hit American citizens who are if the ceasefire and the deal is made, and then you come hit and harm American interests, Okay. I don't fear Russia. Europeans have to fear Russia. I don't think the Americans. I don't fear the Russians' nuclear force. The nuclear force is more dangerous to the damn Russians. Anyone who knows the nature of their long-range intercontinental missile. Okay, their tactical nuclear force is dangerous to European cities, but their intercontinental nuclear force and their nuclear submarines are more likely to blow up on this. Their nuclear subs, boomers, are more likely to blow up upon launch than they are to actually launch their missiles. And even if there are a couple, missiles do get launched, our existing anti-ballistic systems, THAAD and SHORAD and the other things, are strong enough that we can probably knock out 30, 40 missiles easily. And the Russians, but there's hundreds of missiles. Yes, they have lots, but they're on decrepit launch platforms that have not been maintained or repaired, and are going to be, you thought Chernobyl was bad. Then one of their nuclear sites launching and then blowing up on the ground and taking out the whole fucking 50 missiles will be worse because they arm, Russians arm their missiles before launch. They don't have remote control. They don't have delayed arming. Their missiles are armed prior to launch. So therefore, on the platform, they're armed nuclear warheads that then blow up because of bad maintenance or something on. They blow up in the launch platform or just above the platform. You have then all those wonderful, all 50 warheads, the 20 warheads in one, 5 or 10 warheads in one, all blow the hell up. But then the 50 missiles around it will blow the hell up. The radioactive death circle around Russia. We wouldn't have to strike Russia. It will be one giant cloud of radioactive zone by its own inaction. So let's not fool. I mean, it's a bluff. Everyone knows their nuclear threat is a bluff. What's not a bluff is that will spread across the world. That radioactive cloud will spread all through Europe, killing people. And there are intermediate range weapons that do work. And some of their ship missiles will get off, and they will hit a couple cities in the U.S. Okay, but still, they don't have. There is the threat of nuclear war. The problem is that is it going to be a real, the Russian nuclear? I mean, the Russian nuclear threat is more of a threat to it. And the only reason why they'd use it is kind of like a vain attempt to kind of like, if I can't be boy in charge, I'm going to make sure nobody can. Okay, that's the kind of way it's going to look. So you have to be careful about this. It's not that they're threatening us of extinction. They're threatening to extinguish themselves and the rest of Europe with their the radioactive effect and the long-term effect within the global condition. So this is why there has to be an end. And that's not because there's a nuclear war. So I think the problem is that the idea that, Ukraine, even with the assistance we're giving it, doesn't have the manpower to go capture Moscow or to impose. The only way Putin will agree to a thing that everything goes back to 2014 is if you go to Moscow and you impose it. No European nation. I mean, you go look at ask most Europeans, are they willing to die for their own country? And it's in the 30s and 20. It's like low percentiles. Okay, you're going to ask them to die for somebody else? Really? This idea that they're going to be talking about that, it's not believable. I know what the statistics are about what attitudes about how Europeans view about. They're quite willing to let Americans go die for it. Yeah, that's their answer. And actually that's the attitude of young Ukrainians. There's about 1 million young combat age Ukrainians living, working in Europe, non-Ukraine, EU, in the EU areas. Trump just are going to deport 250,000 of them. Yay! Ukrainians being deported. Why? Well, Ukraine needs fighting men. That's kind of a joke, but Why are these, those all those pro-Ukrainian people protesting in New York, many of them who were Ukrainians? Well, why aren't they joining their army, going home to fight for their fatherland, their motherland? They're quite willing to, now you have to spend American money, but you're Ukrainian. Why aren't you? And the same thing over here. These kids, they're pro-Ukrainian, but you ask them, why the hell are they here and not in the Ukrainian army fighting? That's you're pro-Putin. You're pro-Putin. See, that's the silly aspect of this argument. We have to ask how that Zelensky refused to draft them. Why? Because this is his demographic vote. This is the vote he thinks that he can win their vote. And if you have to the next election, remember, he was Russian speaking. He's not Ukrainian. He's a Russian Jew. He made his money in not Ukraine, not Kiev, but in Moscow media, Russian-based media. And therefore, this is a very important understanding of this. We have to remember in 2019, all the Ukrainian analysts were saying, "Oh my God, Pushchenko's Russian bots are promoting this. Russian bots and Russian media is promoting this Zelensky comedian to be president." Therefore, they saw this as a pro-Russian, pro-Putin candidacy to undo the Maidan Revolution, right? So you have, people say, "Oh, but it is, And on my side, even on the conservative side, who's critical of this, they think, well, Zelensky is a product of the Maidan Revolution. No, he wasn't. The Maidan Revolution, I'm not going to get into this is a CIA colors. No, that's even silly. I know too many Ukrainian students who went back to Ukraine they want to be part of Europe. They don't want to be part of Russia. So when Lukashenko, remember, Lukashenko won the election in 2010. 2010. By promising that he would do a better job than the Orange Revolution coalition, which broke down between the president and Julia Timosheva, right? You never get the names right. But the Orange Revolution fell into factions of the ultranationalists and the rise of Klitschko and the nationalists. Well, okay, that's a sad little world, but it's a complex. You have to understand that why did Lukashenko? The Russians have a big bloc; they're going to vote. But how are you going to drive these Russian-speaking Ukrainians who don't speak Ukrainian, who have no Ukrainian culture? They're not the ultranationalists. They're not the pure Ukrainian ultranationalists. They have ties to the past that more Western Lvov-based Ukrainians do. They want us to be part of Europe. They are European in their view. And I met them. I remember my students, same thing. Europe. They don't want to go back to their country. The ones that do go back to their country tend to be the pure ethnic Ukrainians. The ethnic Ukrainians tend to go back. The ethnic Russians will go to Europe and stick in Europe. So, but even the ethnic Ukrainians don't want to be part of Russia. Only the very old. The older generation, above 50, people above 50 and older, they have a fondness for the ethnic Russians of older generations. They have a fondness for that. And also you have to remember, after 2014, the Russians dumped a lot of people into the provinces as Crimea, as a way to, make it more Russian. But this is here, no there. And I think that there has to be a peace. And I think that the broker is going to be the only person who can make a brokery deal to make a peace is the Americans, and it has to be done in a way. There's people saying, "How dare you?" How dare you support Trump? Trump was rude. You can't. And why did the Americans go vote with the Russians and the North Koreans in the United Nations? Because that was the Ukrainians and other forces who pushed that vote in the UN were acting imprudently. This was a imprudent, virtue signaling resolution that had no meaning other than to poison the well. And if you're going to negotiate, you can't tell the other guy, fuck off. You're the evil monster. You're horrible. You're monster. Oogle. And then, hey, Vlad, I need to talk to you. Now, at the same time, I can see some of the anger of the Trump people, Zelensky, help the Russian thinking, maybe I'm going to get some advantage here. But no, Trump is not going to let the Russians get advantage either. So there is this idea that this is a true negotiation. So let's stop there. That's enough of geopolitics 101 for the crowd. But again, the Dan Mahoney piece on American Mind about Hitler all the way, how Hitler is being used everywhere, I think is a very good article to undo the absurdum ad Hitler, reducing everything to Hitler. Everyone I don't like is a Hitler. I think this is a very good piece by Dan Mahoney. Now, I want to get to my friend James Corlitz, who's kind of posted something on the last week's video thing. I was happy. I've been waiting for him to say something, and I was a little depressed. I haven't heard from him. And I put two books that I listed in the catalog, the card below, the Michel Gauchet book, Les Nudes Démocrates, or Democratic Knot, the French version of the, and also the Pierre Menot book, The Corps des Filières de Philosophie Politique, which is translated as The World Beyond Politics by Princeton in English, for those of you who can't read French. Let's go to his wonderful little thing. He says, it's interesting, but a question. Gauchet does not seem to spend much time addressing the impact of the presence of ethnic groups, which hasn't gone through the exit from religious process to the wider society, which has taken place, and how this may impact the crisis of democracy. In other words, okay, this is a critic, and I think he's right. I think Gauchet doesn't really want to touch the ethnic question, and I think it's because he's not suicidal. Because anyone who addresses that gets canceled in France. And Gauchet wants to, he's a professor. He's retiring, of course. I think he's at the age where he's been forced to retire, but he still wants to get his books published. And gets that, and he's a little, and you have to remember, he is a man of the left. He was a man of the left. He was a student of, Lefort, Lefort, and the man of the left. We call the sane left, French left, not the existential left, but the man of the sane left in that sense. And therefore, yes, that the Muslim population in France has not exited from religious, like he says, the larger thing. And why is this a crisis? In other words, secular is remember, his whole point is and I repeat what Corlitz says here, his comprehensive description on one key feature of the crisis, the way power that is responsible for maintaining the unity of the whole moves into the background, and the autonomous individual moves to the forefront, to the point that the existence of that power is obscured. seems to support the argument Minat makes in his book, The Situation of France. Right, that's a very good book on the situation of France, and that's the French situation. I think in this way that book is. And that's available. That has been translated. I should put the copy of the translation of that. It's available by, I think, St. Augustine's Press published it as well. And my friend Dan Mahoney and Paul Seaton probably were translating it, or someone tied to that would translated it. I know Paul more through Dan, but Dan. What I'm going to suggest the situation of France is that, and agrees, that secular now repeating what he says here, that secular Western European societies like France or Britain are not going to be able to easily integrate immigrants groups given the situation they are currently going through. Because, again, one is secularized. The European societies have heavily secularized and have gone through it, not only secularized, but also gone through the two things. One factor is they went through the Reformation, and therefore even the churches. You remember, even though you want to say the Reformation only, the Reformation didn't just affect the Protestants; it affected Catholics also, hence the Counter-Reformation. So you have to understand that the Reformation is also affects the Catholics as well, and the Church does change. The Council of Trent clearly deviates from previous practices of the Church. And therefore, to say that they had no influence, the Reformation had no influence on Catholic practices and Catholic things is simply just false. You have a change that the Islamic world has never had a Reformation at all. And the second thing that they have not done is the secularization, the rise of secularization of religious. And the loss of the sacred in that sense, the kind of desacralization and move away from the sacred that in his, Guichet has talked about from all his works. I mean, his, what is it? Guichet's works, all of Guichet's works deal with this question of the sacred and religion. His first, I remember his big book, the Desacrament of the World, and that was published in the translated in the 80s. Where is it? Let me get this right. The disenchantment of the world, the political history of religion. This was a classic thing that was translated in English that was dealt with in a certain thing. Let's go to the French. I'd rather see the French. Because that was published when? It was translated like in the 80s in America, 80s, 90s in America into English, but in French. No, let's keep in French. It's 1985 was translated. It was originally written, and it was done in like in the 1990s into English. And his 4-volume, the advancement of democracy, the advancement of democracy. In his Not. This is all tied to what we can say a very important aspect in Guichet's argument about the theological. But in the Not, Democratic Not, he talks about the problems. Highlights. I really need to go. I haven't read. I read it once, and I've been waiting to get a new e-copy. I need to play with an e-copy because I need to convert it to text. And if some Corlitz, if you can send me an e-copy, then I don't have to operate through my stupid e-reader, a proprietary e-reader, but have a just text copy of Not the Democratic Not. I would appreciate it because I'm playing with it simply because I would like to translate it in that sense, auto translate through some good translation devices I know about. because I just am too lazy. I just discovered if I translate it myself, I have to take more time than I can have available to me to go look at this. I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding something. The French, sometimes he gets a little too subtle, the French does, and I'm kind of getting. But let's go back to your point here. Corlett says, Minette argues that the contemporary European state has historically low powers of integration, something Guichet analysis seems to confirm. And I agree with that. That's true. Another aspect of Guichet's analysis may be interesting here. His older argument that the exit from religion and secularization is a contingent historic phenomena rooted in particular religious traditions, which may not translate as directly to religions other than Christianity. And yes, exactly. This is the point. This is a major point that what Guichet highlights about this transformation thing of the desecularization. May only be true of Christianity in that sense, and not true of Islam, because Islam again didn't have a Reformation. It doesn't have. It had a. If anything, it had a reaction. The Enlightenment of Islam, the early Renaissance, what we consider that period of Islamic tradition that is kind of open to religion. Averroes, Al-Farabi, and these guys. What happens is they immediately, is replaced with people who crush and see that as, they are kind of esotericists who try to say that these things are compatible. But then later, it's submission to religion. It's like it's gone backwards, not forwards. In other words, the Enlightenment tradition or rationality is at first kind of shown to be not an enemy of it, but an ally. But what ends up happening is the religious or the revelational overpowers the rational and the philosophic and Islamic thought in ways that does not happen in Christianity. And then what happens with Christianity is you have the Renaissance, then the Reformation. Renaissance and Reformation are very synonymous events. And you couldn't have the Reformation without the Renaissance. It's not that I disagree with Burckhardt's argument that the Reformation is a reaction to the, in other words, in Burckhardt, there's this constant, Jacob Burckhardt has this idea of it's kind of a Hegelian dialectic that you have the Renaissance and then the reaction to Reformation. Then you had the Enlightenment, and then you had the Romantics, but this kind of back, and then the idealists and the German idealism, and then this cultural back and forth. I disagree with this. I think if you look at what is the Enlightenment, what is the Reformation, but a child of the Renaissance. What is the modern Enlightenment, but a child of the Renaissance taken to certain, and the Reformation taking a certain direction. So, I mean, this is what we have to understand here. And I think this is right, that this is his older argument that the exit of religion and secularization is contingently historic phenomena rooted in this and is not translated. Could the growing presence of Islam and some other religions start to obstruct the exit from religion and the decantation of the autonomous structuralization? Now, that's this concept. In other words, secularization of religion, the loss of religion leads to a kind of decantation of autonomous structuralization of religion. In other words, that we become secularized, and that our institutions are, will push us to secularizations in a certain way. That's a good question, and I think that is a good question. That the question is, does the fact that the secularization process, that Islam and the other religions are not following that pattern, and therefore then the question then becomes that will Christianity create antibodies that, or will a revival of Christianity happen and to kind of counter that one kind of works against the trajectory that has been happening. So that is a good question that I don't think Gishet does directly answer. On the related point, Gishet has some interesting things to say about negative impact of predominance of autonomy of interpersonal relations. On page 192 and 93 of the edition, he writes, and I was thinking that Minot wrote. I think Minot wrote what Minot wrote. Minot wrote about the impact of liberalism of male and female relations in the family in his Court di Famiglia di Philosophy Politica. There's a translation, but I don't call it the English title. That is what I talk about, the world of the world of not Gishet, but this is Minette. Okay, this is even hilarious. A world beyond politics. A world beyond politics, as I mentioned. So let's look at this thing. So he says, what else? He goes, Minette argues that liberalism's regime of separation separates men from women and in some way sets them against each other. In other words, liberalism, yeah, exactly. Women. This is the thing. He argues that liberalism creates systems of division of powers, difference of sex. The economies. And back to that. That's a very Schmittian argument. And, Schmitt argues in Concept of Political Liberalism creates different antitheses and depends on certain economy versus society versus the political. In other words, these divisions that creates liberalism. Liberal sphere creates the public versus the private, the secular versus the religious. Not only division of powers in the political frame, but also division of power within the social frame. That therefore this does create the male-female issue, and that separates men and women in some ways, sets them against each other in order to achieve greater autonomy. In other words, this is the problem. This is the Tocquevillian idea that the division of liberalism creates the dynamic that leads to the rise of the individual, the individualization of the egoistic individual that Tocqueville so warns about in his Democracy in America. And so much also what Durkheim warns against in his book Suicide about atomy, right? Atomy and the problem of atomy that happens in isolation, that people feel isolated without any connection to anyone else. In other words, the spheres of separation leads to the growing thing of individualism. Yes, exactly. And therefore, they achieve greater autonomy. But he highlights and predicts some challenges this will bring for the family, predictions which do seem to proving accurate in different ways. Minot is following Tocqueville. We have to remember the Code de Famille comes after his book on Tocqueville. And his Tocqueville book. And I think this is the Code de Famille, Code Famille di Philosophie Politica, is really very much a kind of one of his later his kind of taking his earlier books, the history of liberalism, and also his books on the liberal tradition, and then his book on Tocqueville. Which it's Tocqueville's analysis of individualism, and this is what he sees, okay, great, liberalism is important because it gives us good things, but it also provides the danger that leads to liberal. Minot is merely repeating the Tocquevillian argument here, and just giving it a more clear case than Tocqueville does in a certain way. that proved to be accurate in different ways. But given that Gushat says in the Democratic Knot, about traditional religion's long proven record of perpetuating the social bonds across generation, this may be another way which the more secular society starts to be disadvantaged compared to more religious ethnic subgroups. Yes, exactly. This is the problem. Those religious other groups have a bond of society. Okay. These ethnic groups, like the Algerians and the Moroccans who come to France, they because of Islam, they have connections of subsidiarity, of solidarity and trust amongst each other, or some aspect of a religious bond that is much stronger than the bonds of what happens to the European liberal, who is an individual alone, who's been, because of the division of man and female, all these, his religion is no longer pounded. The family is no longer the important bond anymore. He is at best an autonomous individual, and therefore, whereas they are still bonded strongly to things like family, kin group. Now, this is where my some of my friends in evolutionary biology will say, well, that's because first cousin marriage problems versus second cousin marriage. Yeah, that's true. I think that I think the religion and the biological reinforce each other here. Okay. And I think this is an important way that in other words, that in the French example, these things, these bonds, these ethnic bonds, and actually you see this in Britain too with the Pakistani communities, and why the Pakistani community sticks together. They will not rat on their rape gang boys, even if they themselves may think their behavior is wrong. Their ethnic solidarity will prevent them from ratting on. Where among the white liberals, the urban white liberals in England will gladly sell out the poor the poor working class out in a second. Okay. And that's primarily because they don't see themselves. One is that the urban London intellectual class, even if they're white, sees themselves as everywheres, and they see themselves as cosmopolitans and not merely Little Britainers. And they look at the working class as Little Britain. Okay, this petty small place. And I think that's, that was the famous show Little Britain about in the 1990s, early thousands, which made fun of the lower class English, of their white trashiness and this element of their poverty. And this is the attitude of the urban cultural elite towards them. And this is this class hate, this class contempt. Reinforces, and there's no solidarity between them. And because there's no solidarity, they won't cooperate with each other. Whereas the Muslim community, the elites who might not be involved in the rape gangs, won't openly condemn the rape gangs, because to condemn them would be seen as a betrayal of their ethnic solidarity. So, this is both cases are. I think that's a good point, and I really would like to see you write something about this. Lastly, on page 212 and 213 of Le Not, Gushat does touch on some of the points I've raised. He is more confident that the Islamic world and other non-European groups will follow the same path as Europe. Now, I disagree. I think he's, in other words, the Islamic world and other non-European will follow the same path. I think this is where his Hegelianism. This is where the Hegelianism comes in. This is why I can see Hegel. It's a bit of Hegel in Gushat here, and I think he gets it from Lefort also. Lefort never did structural stuff. He looked at political things. So you can see the Kojevian conception of Hegel as the problem of what representation, not representation. What is it called? recognition, right? That the Hegelian problem of recognition being the engine of politics. That the idea of recognition and the role recognition plays in shaping political identity, and and why actors do what they do, and Kojève structuralizes this, right? I think this is something that I think this is again. Perhaps the differences between the situation of France and Britain in respect to ethnic, religious minorities can explain his optimism. I think yes. I think it's not, in other words, I think his optimism is misguided. I think France will get as bad as England. And only difference why I don't think France is as bad as England is I think the elites are not. Well, first of all, France is a bigger, more spread out place, more city. Yes, Paris is the blob, but the destructions of the larger northern European English cities that happened in the 80s, 90s, and thousands, and the blob of London is not is more the demographic, geographic shape of what happened in England makes this worse than in whereas in France the migrants, the immigrant problem is stuck in the suburbs. It's a suburb problem. Suburb in the big cities. The big cities only because of the current wave of Syrian refugees, which are another problem. That's a totally different problem. You can say the existing problem of the Muslims, of the Algerian versus Moroccan Muslims that plague France, but you add into this the new wave of Muslims after 2000. Was it 2010 or when did Angela commit Harry Carey? I forget the date. 2000. I want to say 2010, but that's wrong. Yeah, 2010, 2011, right? That's, yeah, I was thinking about 2010, 2011. I just wanted to get the date right. Oops, daisy, black, there it goes out. Well, that's it. I hope everyone will get their things. We've been for over an hour. If you like it, hit the like button, please. I've seen one person like it. We've had right now we have only 6 people in the room. We've had more people there before. I hope people will look at this and like it helps the algorithm. All people leaving good, we're closing out. Like the video, hit the social media links below, academic social media links below those, and then the Patreon subscribe if you want to help, or buy one of my books through the normal way. So list of the books there. Including the ebook that's available, Kindle and other online Apple books and things like this is my. Again, I welcome you guys to go check us out and do it like here. Please comment and put things into the question, things that you want to deal with it. I hope Corlitz will like what I did with his thing in discussion about both the Menat and the Menat and Gachet pieces. I really need to spend some time more on Gachet than I am doing because I want to say something about the Knot. I think the Knot is a very interesting book in that sense. I remember I read it, and some of the points that you're bringing up here is right. I think the question of religion And ethnicity is a big one in that sense. That is a weakness. And I think he's not, I mean, Geshet is a little bit believing that this process of division, liberalization, and division in secularization or desacredization will also affect these other religions. And I am not convinced. I'm not necessarily convinced that is the case. It'd be good, it'd be nice that this would lead to the kind of I don't know. This was the Fukuyama wish, right? This was the Fukuyama and the Fukuyama Fukuyama wish. In many ways, the religious argument really puts a knife through the Kojevian interpretation of this dialectical process. But still, there is this perception in Geshet that there's just going to be this pattern of what he sees in the rise of the autonomous individual is going to be followed and echoed in other groups. Now, this is a good, interesting thing. We're seeing how it operates in, let's say, let's look at India, see if India does this pattern. I don't see you can see this pattern in India. I think it's rather the opposite. I think it's the tension of the fact that India, you have both caste aspects and Islam versus Hinduism and Christianity conflicts that is so much driving the Hindu parties. Okay, this is what I mean. The Indian case is a very big, interesting case for this point of view. I don't think you can get liberalism in the way that Geshet says would follow how Christian world worked. So that's an interesting thing that people would look at. So again, that's the thing we're doing it. So people have comments, questions, please give them and put them in the discussion part of the thing. If you're watching this after the fact, please do that. Feel be free. So for that's it. We're almost at we're hour 20 minutes into this. I thank you for coming. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I will see you next week. I hope you guys like it. Please like it. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye.